Let's see if I can. So, Dr. Jackson, you have center stage.
Great. Thank you so much, Doug. Hello, everyone. So glad to see each and every one of you on today's webinar, where we're going to have some exciting information. As Doug mentioned, I am Dr. Sarita Jackson, the chair for Global Chamber Los Angeles, and welcome to our monthly meetup, where we will have speakers talking about very important topics. The last few monthly meetups, we focused on the US Mexico Canada agreement, the joint review, and we had individuals not just from the LA chapter, but also from Phoenix, from Arizona, and New York chime in on what we could expect and provide information for businesses that participated or even watched the video that's on the Global Chamber YouTube channel. And then today, now we have some additional information. But just to give you a sense of what these monthly meetups are about, yes, we do have the presentations where people are sharing information, but it's also an opportunity to learn about what opportunities exist through our different organizations, our companies, or for people if they have any kind of needs as we come together under the larger mission of making these global connections. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jeff Dar, who is also on our Global Chamber LA Advisory Board, and he preceded me as the chair of the Global Chamber Los Angeles. And Jeff Dar's topic is important treaties every person doing international business needs to know. And the focus is on the Convention on the International Sale of Goods. Jeff Dar is the senior principal at Dar and Newman. So now I will turn the virtual floor over to Jeff.
Whoops. Yeah, good to see everybody. I know many of you, a couple of new faces. Also want to just a quick shout out to a guest I invited as a potential new member, Gustavo Lorenz, with the International Center of Dispute Resolution. So, couple things. First, for those who don't know me, I'm a lawyer based in Los Angeles. I practice all over the United States and world. I've been focusing on international transactions and disputes for close to 30 years. I also serve as an arbitrator in both domestic and international arbitrations. So this is an area that I'm going to be talking about that's dear to my own personal heart. So today, there's no really new news. It's really just a question of what do people not know and they should need to know about if you're doing international business. And so I have a PowerPoint I'm going to share. I will be primarily talking about the CISG. I'll explain all that in just a moment. And then also, as another important treaty that everyone who does international business should know, I'm going to briefly talk at the end about international arbitration. There are a number of other treaties that people should know. Some are more geared, frankly, for lawyers versus business people. The one I'm going to talk about, anyone who's a deal maker, anyone who's doing international business, if you don't know about them, you're frankly going to be missing the point and missing the what your counterparts in other parts of the world may be well focused on that people in the US are less focused on. So with that, let me share my PowerPoint. Give me one moment. Okay, everyone's seeing my PowerPoint now, I hope.
We can see it, Jeff.
Okay, great. All right, very good. So a couple of things basically. A little background on the Convention for the International Sale of Goods and why we're talking about. First, treaties are really tricky for everybody because they are key to business in the world because they are, when a treaty, part of the law of every country that's a member. So this is one of those examples where I will suggest to everybody that most people have no idea what we're talking about, including many, many people who regularly do international business. Most lawyers you'll talk to, I will submit, are also completely unaware of this treaty. And part of that reason is because finding treaties is not so easy. In the context of this treaty, It's not in any of the normal California statutes or federal statutes. This one is easy to find, but you have to know to look for it. It's not going to otherwise be around. So that is why it's really important to talk about it. And in particular, this one affects almost any international business because it deals with all international sale agreements. So just a little background. This was adopted, the Convention on the International Sale of Goods, also commonly known as the Vienna Convention, depending upon what part of the world you're in. I was recently in Bulgaria, and lawyers in Europe were referring to this not as the CISG, the Convention on International Sale of Goods, but the Vienna Convention. I hear both all the time. So this was adopted to respond to the absence of a unified system of legal rules to international agreements covering the sale of goods. And the idea was to contribute to the removal of legal barriers when you're doing international trade and to promote international sales. This has been around a very long time, so it's not new news. This was signed on April 11, 1980 in Vienna, Austria, which is why it's called the Vienna Convention, and it was entered into force on January 1, 1988. So not new news. However, 70 countries representing 75% of the world are parties to the CISG, and that includes US, France, Spain, Germany, Italy, and China. Most places you'll do business. Important countries that have not yet signed would include the United Kingdom and Turkey. And this is a supplementary set of rules, which means that if a clause in a sales agreement diverges from the Convention on the International Sale of Goods provisions on an issue, that clause supersedes the CISG. Hopefully that makes sense. And then I put in a link if anyone wants to click on it so you can see what countries have adopted the CISG. And then just to understand, we're a Los Angeles chapter today, but anywhere in the world. So for example, in California or anywhere else in the United States, because the US entered into the CISG long ago, under the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, it's the law of the country and the law of the state. So in California, the CISG is the law of the country. I mean, the law of California, even though you won't find it in your California statutes. So what is the scope of the CISG? The CISG governs the formation of international contracts for sale of goods, as well as the rights and obligations of the buyer and seller. What it doesn't govern are issues relating to the validity of a contract, such as fraud. It also doesn't deal with issues as to title of goods. And these questions are going to be resolved by the respective laws of the different member states, which is one of the reasons why we'll also at the end talk briefly about international arbitration. And the type of things that the CISG does not apply to the right slide here. So some of the exclusions of things that don't apply, doesn't apply to the sale of goods bought for personal, family, or household use. It's commercial transactions. But unless the seller at any time before at the conclusion of the contract, if neither knew or known of the right that the goods were bought for such use, doesn't involve sales by auction, doesn't involve sales of stock shares, investment securities, sale of ships or aircraft, sales of electricity, and it does not apply significantly to the sale of services. It's goods. That's why goods is part of the name. But there is a lot of confusion on that. It doesn't cover, as I mentioned, validity and title and contract formation. So let me get to now sort of the nitty gritty of what this is and how it applies. So first of all, what's important to know is the CISG, as I mentioned, is the law of California. It's the law of the United States. It's the law of any of the 70 contracting nations. If you do not opt out of the CISG in a contract, which you can do, it applies. And the reason why that's significant is most people are unfamiliar with it. Most people don't have any idea as to it even existing, let alone if it does, they don't know enough to know if it's something that's bad or good. So I'm going to today try to make sure that everyone understands, one, it is not bad. Most people don't address it, which means by default it applies to your international sale of goods. Some people who think they know about it will routinely opt out in their agreement, needs mutual consent by both parties that the CISG does not apply. Again, otherwise the default is it applies. I will submit to you that those are people who generally have no reason, if you ever ask them, why does your contract say this? They'll just tell you, well, it's in some boilerplate I found someplace. If you ask them, why don't you want the CISG? And for example, in California, in the United States, the default would be the Uniform Commercial Code, which many of you are familiar with. They would not have any basis to tell you why, other than it's in their contract that somebody found someplace and put together to opt out. And I'm going to submit to you today that if you know enough about the CISG, it's not radically different than the Uniform Commercial Code that many in the United States are familiar with, or similar statutes in other countries, particularly civil law countries, which is most of the world. And then second, I'm going to give you enough information to feel comfortable why you don't want to opt out of the CISG, I would submit, but you need to be aware of it. And particularly if you're dealing with people in other countries, if there's ever a dispute over goods and you didn't opt out of it, you need to know enough to know where to find the treaty and enough to know how it governs. And even if you talk to your lawyer, if you have one and the dispute gets that level, make sure your lawyer knows about this issue, because again, having been in the field for a very long time, and very active, know most international lawyers who conduct international business, period. There aren't that many of us. Other than those, most typical lawyers don't even know the issue exists, so no one's going to even spot it for you. So some basics to help you understand what the CISG does, and it's, again, nothing really radically new or different. It's just somewhat different. So contract formation, just a couple basics I've been doing. I'm not going to give you a thorough training on the CISG because that would take a lot of time and we could spend just an hour on each part of it. But it's formed by articles. You'll see references to articles. And I'm going to quickly go through some of the key concepts so you'll feel comfortable and you'll understand this. And again, more issue spotting. So, if you don't opt out, it'll apply, and how to know enough to be smart when there's an issue that comes up in your international sale of goods. So first of all, the formation of a sales agreement. Under the CISG, a proposal for concluding a sales agreement constitutes an offer if it is sufficiently definite and it indicates the intent of the offer to be bound in case of acceptance. And that's CISG Article 14. A proposal is deemed sufficiently definite to constitute an offer if it indicates the goods and expressly or implicates the fixes or makes provisions for determining the quantity and price. Sort of straightforward. Article 55, for example, provides that a valid sales agreement can nevertheless be formed. The parties will in such case consider to have impliedly made reference to the price generally charged at the time of the conclusion. And it covers just sort of a lot of common sense things. And unless the contrary is clearly indicated by the offer, a proposal addressed to the public is to be considered as an invitation to deal, and that's Article 14-2. So withdrawal and revocation of an offer. An offer becomes effective when it reaches the offeree. An offer may be withdrawn if the withdrawal reaches the offeree before or at the same time as the offer. And until a contract is concluded, an offer may be revoked if the revocation reaches the offeree before he has set an acceptance. And it can't be revoked if it indicates it's irrevocable, including when it states a fixed time for acceptance, or if the offeree, relying on the offer, acted upon it and it was not unreasonable for him to act in such a manner. So that's basic concepts of the CISG. And this slide sort of covers the basic points I made. And of course, the common sense, you can't have material variation between offer and acceptance, just as you would expect. Nothing radically different, but again, different roles. And people in the other countries you're dealing with may be well more familiar with the CISG than you. So you want to be, a savvy international business person. Writing requirements. Under the UCC, our Uniform Commercial Code, It's a little different because unlike the UCC, the CISG is purported to satisfy the needs of international business and facilitate trade. So there's a default toward finding sales agreements. So the CISG does not require the sales agreement to be concluded in nor evidence in writing, regardless of the sales amount. And a sales agreement may be proved by any means, including witnesses. So sort of important to know. You can make a statement or declaration on Article 96 of the CISG that Article 11 dealing with no statute of frauds, which would be a law in California, doesn't apply. And here's some examples of countries that have done so. And basically that would deal with whether or not something needs to be in writing for it to be, if it's intended to be performed for more than a year without getting into the statute of frauds, but basically dealing with not having to have everything in writing and having those issues pop up unexpectedly, which can happen in California and the United States. There's no parole evidence rule in the CISG. What that means is that evidence of prior negotiations is relevant to show the meaning of a contract. You otherwise may have, for example, in California, limitations on prior negotiations based on what the contract says. And parties can, by contract, derogate from the CISG. So you can include a clause saying no evidence of prior agreements. But if you don't, it's going to be permitted because the CISG expressly provides so. Dealing with issues of warranties and disclaimers of warranties. A seller must deliver goods which are in the quantity, quality, and description required by the sales agreement, and they must be contained or packaged in the manner required by the agreement. And unless otherwise stipulated in the sales agreement, the goods, in order to conform to the sales agreement, have to be fit for purposes for which the goods of the same description would ordinarily be used, be fit for any particular purpose, made known to the seller at the time of the conclusion of the sales agreement, correspond to samples or models that were provided to the buyer, and became contained or packaged in the manner usual for such goods. And one of the other important things is that the CISG doesn't pass on questions of validity of goods and the agreement. And again, that was sort of covered by me in the beginning. That would normally then go to domestic law of the state or country. Couple of things that are worth remembering if you're dealing with CISG. And again, this is just issue spotting today and getting familiarity so people aren't knee-jerk, don't know what this is, or if they know, they think they don't want to have it govern their contract, so they opt out. So there's the concept of fundamental breach. So basically, what's a fundamental breach under the CISG? You can avoid a contract if breach is fundamental. Article 25 provides that that means it's a substantial deprivation of expectation that was reasonably foreseeable as a result of breach. And you can, in your contract, do all types of things which will supersede parts of the CISG otherwise, but you may wish to define situations of what a fundamental breach is so that your contract addresses what you can at least foresee and work out to avoid a dispute later on, particularly if you're the party of what's going to have that concern. Now, because it's an international treaty out of signed Austria, there's the concept, just going to cover, just so it's not a term you will then later say, never heard of that in a million years. Knock-freeze notice. What is that? And why am I even mentioning it? So you can give notice to the other party of an extended period of time to perform under your sales agreement. And if the breaching party does not perform during that time, then the contract may be avoided. And that's term is a German word, but knock-freeze period must be reasonable. And that's a right you have under the CISG that you may not otherwise have under domestic sale laws of different countries, including here in the United States and California. Now I'd like to turn to issues of specific performance under the CISG. So basically, Article 46 and Article 62 I cite here of the CISG. So a buyer's general rights to specific performance You can require performance. When I'm talking about by specific performance, make the other party perform as they agreed to do in the sales agreement. So you may require performance under Article 46 unless the buyer has resorted to a remedy which is inconsistent with the requirement of specific performance. And a seller-specific relief, a seller may require the buyer to pay the price, take delivery, or perform his or her other obligations unless the seller has resorted to a remedy which is inconsistent with this requirement. Sort of common sense, but it's nice to have it spelled out for your international sales. And a court may apply domestic law standards under Article 28 and refuse specific performance. So again, nothing that's radically different than what you expect, but it's something you should be aware of. And again, it's the default. Next, I want to talk about CISG remedies. This would be for damages and other breaches of a sales agreement. So Article 74 has a rule awarding expectation damages. So what did the party expect? Consequential damages are awardable if they're foreseeable as a consequence of breach. So all friendly to particularly a seller. A buyer may reduce the price under, this would be Article 50, if the goods are non-conforming. Again, something that makes sense that may not be available to you otherwise. Parties are not prevented from crafting their own remedies. And the CIG, it specifically provides that interest may be awarded, and that's Article 48. And I'm doing this somewhat quickly because I want to make sure we have time for some discussion afterwards. Research tools, because I started off by saying part of the disconnect on a lot of people who do business and even lawyers is where do you even find the Convention on the International Sale of Goods articles I've been referencing, because you're not going to find them in any California statute or United States statute. And often, I think it's pretty much the same almost everywhere in the world, including civil countries. Remember, civil countries, unlike us, were a common law. Civil countries have much more statutes governing their laws because they don't really rely on case law like we do in a common law country like the US or the UK. So even then, you need to go to the treaty. So a couple of things that are worth noting on this slide. CISG provides specifically that the fact it's an international treaty has to be taken into consideration. This means that non-US sources are very important because interpretation of the CISG around the world, unlike maybe in California, for example, or US being limited to US courts, they're going to be directly relevant because the CISG basically says so. And so how do you find out about all these things? And how do you do it if you're a business person, let alone a lawyer? So most of the materials that I usually go to can be found at, and there's a link if you want to click on it, should be a hyperlink. Pace University has long had a database they maintain of not only the treaty, not only if there's any countries. I meant reference in passing to a couple exemptions you can do when you agree to the treaty, but it also provides a wealth of cases, so you can find different cases, particularly cases maybe where your counterparts may be located, dealing with interpreting the CISG. So that's a fantastic research tool. It's the only one I know that really exists. I've been going to it for well over 20 years. And that's why the link, I think, is very important, because otherwise you may never find this. And it's just it's a US based site of all things, but it's a wealth of fantastic information. So next, I want to talk about, as I mentioned, international arbitration and its role in your international business. And this ties into what we were just talking about, because a sales agreement often is going to be in writing, may not be in writing and orally. And if you don't address what happens in the case of a breach, meaning somebody has to bring an action for example, damages or specific performance, you're going to be by default in a court. And if you're in a court, you're going to be subject to a lawsuit in some place in the world. It may be in your own home turf. It may be in the place of the one or more other countries you did the international sales agreement with. And this would apply beyond sales agreements, any international commercial transaction. And so if you don't have an agreement to do arbitration for cross-border business. You're going to be in a court, you get a judgment. Often it's not where the assets of the other side is. And what I mean by that is if you want somebody to pay the judgment, you're going to have to go to the place where their assets are located. And there, for the United States in particular, we have no treaties at the moment that govern anyone having any expected recognition of a US judgment. So if you sue somebody because they didn't pay you in China, for example, I'm just randomly picking a country, could be Germany, could be anywhere else, you're going to be at the whims of a local court, no treaty, no obligations of the local court to do what you may think is what they should do. And this is one of my practice areas for a very long time. And even when I work closely with another lawyer, for example, in Germany, to make sure that a judgment I have in California is likely to be recognized and enforced against the company in Germany who owes, a U.S. company, for example, money, very unpredictable if that will play out that way, even when you do everything exactly as you should based on local counsel in Germany telling you what needs to be done for that local court. This all gets flipped around if you do international arbitration, and that's why we're talking about it. So when is an arbitration international? It's an agreement, will be international if the parties to the arbitration have their places of business in different countries. It could also be if the performance, for example, is going to be in another country, even if everyone's in the United States or some other part of the world. International arbitration is widely accepted. It's for commercial purposes, has had very significant growth in the past 30 years. And you'll see why in a moment. And the real key is it's the enforcement of arbitration awards, which make it more predictable because there's a treaty we'll be talking about. And what that means is that by having an arbitration agreement, all that concerns and issues I talked about with respect to trying to enforce a judgment against a party who may owe your company money changes because of a treaty. So just a couple quick slides here. So dispute resolution for why a business should care, why for me a client should care. All the factors are listed here for purposes of what the benefits would be, includes enforceable judgments, and I'll talk about that in a minute because you're enforcing your arbitration awards under a treaty, preliminary injunctive reliefs. It'll be much speedy, provides finality because you don't have appeals, and then in addition, it should be generally less expensive and a more expeditious. You have in the US, we have many reasons why a lot of people don't want to do business with you because US courts have unlimited discovery. Most people in the rest of the world find that very alien and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want someone going through all of their company's records and emails because a US court says so when that doesn't occur elsewhere in the world. So in international arbitration, it follows the international norms, which means you generally don't have the discovery we have in the US. The concept of having depositions, for example, are generally not the case unless parties agree in international arbitrations. Proceedings are also confidential, meaning they're not a public record, which every court filing is a public record, and all the documents that in facts and claims you make in a lawsuit, anyone can find in an arbitration, much different. And you also can pick who decides your case. And so rather than getting a random judge who may know nothing about, for example, international business, you can pick arbitrators and you can pick people who have expertise, and they don't necessarily have to be lawyers. They could be people who have specialty knowledge. So getting to the treaty part, this is why it should be of interest to everybody. So as I mentioned, there are no treaties on judgments. Foreign courts particularly are often reluctant to enforce US jury verdicts. And so since the 1950s, we've had the New York Convention, which is a convention dealing with the enforcement of foreign arbitral awards. And this is what I'm going to be next talking about. So as I mentioned, this is just a fun slide because it shows, and illustrates the point I made earlier, enforceable judgments. It shows the US. There's nowhere else in the world we have a treaty with on recognizing our judgments. And I mentioned that example of China, an area I'm involved with currently. So for a court judgment, the number of court judgments recognized in China at the present time are well under 10. And you'll see in a moment, if it was an arbitration award, an arbitral award, those are regularly recognized in China. So again, a very significant difference of why the default without arbitration agreement has important limitations on your business ability to have predictability. And I will just note that if a party thinks that they may not be held accountable if they don't pay, for example, because you'll get a court judgment and it'll be hard to enforce, what that means is they may breach. If they think there's more predictability that an arbitration award will be recognized and enforced against them where their assets may be in the world, they're much less likely to breach and they're more likely to perform as everyone intended. So this is another slide, shows basically all the different countries, currently approximately 172 nations, that are members of the New York Convention. And as you can see, virtually everywhere in the world. That's why we're talking about this today as another treaty worth knowing. The couple exceptions are places you're not likely to do business. You're not likely to do business in Iran, Chad, North Korea. So, you'll see, for example, the Korean Peninsula. North Korea is one of the countries that's not a member of the New York Convention. So what is the New York Convention all about? Awards are not recognized per se. You first need to get recognition where enforcement is sought. However, and I make reference, there's also some friendship treaties worth looking at what the U.S. has entered into if you're in the U.S. Following World War II with a number of European and Asian countries, which sometimes have reference to arbitration in them, going back to the 1950s again too. Oops. And so basically, what the takeaway from this on the international arbitration part, let me stop sharing. I'll finish talking here. Give me 1 minute here. Sorry, I'm trying to find the button to stop sharing here. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. So the takeaway is, if you have a arbitration agreement in your international commercial transaction, then when you bring your arbitration, because that's what the parties agreed to, you'll get an arbitral award. And there's a set, and I'm not going into them today because that's for another day and gets a little more legal. There's a set parameter of defenses to the otherwise likely presumption that the arbitral award will be recognized, because all these countries are party to a treaty that provides so. And there's certain defenses, for example, if there's a failure to provide notice, or logical things, due process violations, things of that kind, an arbitration award may not be recognized, but most will be if they're done properly by an arbitration tribunal or by the arbitrators without a tribunal, meaning predictability for your business and less likely to have disputes because people will know they'll be held accountable. So that's my presentation today on my end on the CISG. Hopefully it made enough sense for you to feel like you know something now about it if you didn't already. And if you did know about it, you know a little more of the nuances. And the other part that's one of my favorite topics, because it's one of my also practice areas, is why businesses really want to know and smartly utilize international arbitration in their international commercial agreements. And if we have time for if anyone has any questions or discussion, I'm happy to turn things back over.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. So if anyone, oh, good. Dolan has his hand up.
Thanks, Jeff. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So I've you said something, Jeff, just in passing that I wrote down. I'd never heard the phrase before, which was expectation damages.
Mm-hmm.
What is expectation damages?
What that basically, and I'm going to broad brush here, but basically that means what the parties would have expected from performance of the sales agreement, which may include other types of damages, not just literally you failed to pay me $12 for a widget.
Okay.
Hope that sort of answers the question.
It does. It does. I'm familiar with like to your point, tangible damages, but was not familiar with expectation damages. So
And let me ask a question, if I may, of everybody who's online. Raise your hand if you have sales agreements that opt out of the CISG. I see no, you raise your hand. That's good. How many people here understood the CISG applies to their international sales agreements before today, or seeing marketing of this program? Okay, that's why we're something to talk about a little more. And again, the most important takeaway is it's the law of your international sales agreements unless you opt out. And I don't encourage people to necessarily opt out unless there's a reason. Most people have no idea that they should opt out. And I will tell you, I get involved with international disputes all the time. I see lawyers frequently not have any idea what CISG is. And I had a dispute that involved CISG issues with my client was a French surgical spinal implant manufacturer. We had a 5-week jury trial. I had to create out of nothing instructions on what the law is for a jury on the CISG because I couldn't find any. Still don't think there are any that you could find. And so that's why this is all worth knowing for you as a business person or as a lawyer, because my experience is we're talking about something that most of the other world knows much better. Here, very little knowledge of the two treaties I talked about. And maybe that's the United States thinking it's insular to the rest of the world by treaty, but there's lots of treaties we can talk about that affect international business for another day, such as service of process and of evidence and treaties and all over the place. And if you don't know these basics, it's hard to be a smart international business person. Any other questions or discussion? Hopefully everyone found this of value.
Hi, Jeff. This is Marin. I just have a general question. I heard you say at the beginning that you were recently in Bulgaria, which piqued my interest. I'm actually Bulgarian myself. I just wanted to ask, was there a conference or what was the event that you visited?
So I was in May, so not long ago. I was in Sofia for a international conference of lawyers and an international conference of accountant organization. International lawyer and some accountants group I've been part of for 20, 30 years. I'm the only person in the Americas on their 9-person governing board. It's a European Economic Interest Group, which is basically a variety of a nonprofit entity.
Did you meet by any chance Borislav Boyanov, the law firm?
I know a number of lawyers in Bulgaria. I don't think that one I know. And I also went to Plovdiv, which is the oldest continuing living European city, as my one side extra trip. But I've been doing international business and work with lawyers in well over 30 countries. If anyone ever needs to be connected to anyone, I know not all lawyers in Bulgaria, but I know a number, and accountants too.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we're colleagues, although our law firm here is on the U.S. immigration law side. Perhaps there could be some areas where we could complement each other in these international dealings with people coming in and establishing businesses in the U.S.
Happy to connect. And I put my contact via email and LinkedIn in the chat earlier. So if someone wants to contact me, please feel free to do so, or just pick up a phone and call too. And never been to Bulgaria before, but a lovely country. Enjoyed local food, culture, wine, and fantastic craft beer scene.
Yes. It's always nice to visit and explore new countries and new markets and meet new people. That's the way to do international business.
100%. Anyone else, anything on my end before I I see a hand up from Gustavo.
Jeff, just want to, thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to being here, and thank you for sharing this great insights on the CISG. I think it's great for American practitioners, as you mentioned, to kind of be familiar with what affects your law. It's, I'm an attorney coming from Mexico, as well as we have interactions with CISG, and currently, and I've even seen it in contracts. Sometimes parties also mention it as an applying law. Just want to echo also what you mentioned about international arbitration, and invite everybody also to kind of that following up on your introduction to that, it's easier to have in place arbitration than what you think, and its benefits are often much more than anything it costs of you to have it in place. But thank you, Jeff, for having me here today.
Thank you, and glad it's always great to have guests and potential new members. And I will mention Gustavo. I mentioned he's with the International Center for Dispute Resolution. So what that means is he's an expert on international arbitration, as well as myself. But he's on the institution side, one of the leading institutions in the world, which I'm also an arbitrator for. Just a full disclosure.
Okay. There aren't any comments. Jeff, your screen is still showing.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, because once that you stop sharing, it'll help me to kind of see.
I thought I stopped sharing.
Are other people still seeing his PowerPoint? Yeah.
Yes, it's on.
Let me figure out, because it's asking me to share, not stop sharing. Hang on. Let me figure out what I'm not doing. Okay.
There
Sorry
we
about
go.
that.
Thank
Is that
you.
better now?
So
On
much
my
better.
screen, I don't see it. So that's why normally you see it and everyone's on the side. Now I see everyone and nothing
Right.
else. And so I
Makes
apologize about that. I thought I stopped sharing a couple times. So no one sees anything now, right?
Right. Just the faces.
Yeah.
And
No
some
one
names.
sees all my personal stuff on my computer now. We all have seen that nightmare where it's like,
Well,
whoops,
that one thing I took a screenshot of.
I don't
No,
want to show my emails or something, or worse.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. If there aren't any, I checked the chat. I don't see anything else. Before I just shift quickly, because we have some others who are on the call who are quiet, and this would be a great opportunity for them to introduce themselves and what they do. But I do want to bring attention in the chat. You'll see our summer social. So go ahead and RSVP, mark that date on your calendar for August 26th. That is a Wednesday from 4 to 7. The details are in the chat with the location, etc. So I want to bring attention to that. And it's just, bringing everyone together to learn more about the Global Chamber Los Angeles, what we do, and to make the connections as well. Oh, good. There we go. So it's also on the screen here with an automotive theme. Okay. And yeah, and so then we have, and it's going to be at Plug, and it's in the West Los Angeles area. So all the information is on the Global Chamber website on the events calendar for August 26th. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then just also with the monthly meetup, our next monthly meetup is on Thursday, August 20th, every third Thursday of the month. 10 o'clock Pacific time. And so that's also on the calendar. And we hope that those of you that joined us today, and especially if this is your first time, that you come and join us again. So that our next monthly meetup, again, August 20th, and we will update as to any speakers. And so that information will be on the Global Chamber events calendar as well. Okay. If there aren't any questions or additional comments, I just want to kind of go around the room. For those that didn't have a chance to speak, we have David Harlow. If you're available, just to introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Nice to see some of you. Thanks again, Dr. Shrita. I appreciate it. Quick intro about myself. I'm with ITC Diligence. We're licensed customs brokers and FTZ consultants. So foreign trade zones are our world on helping companies set up and manage those. And then we do brokerage services in that same environment. We do that nationally, and we'd love to work with any of you that are interested in learning about the program. Thanks a lot, Sarita.
Great. Thank you, David. We have Vivek Suri. If you're in a position where you can just open your mic, quickly introduce yourself.
Oh, yes. Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, so I'm a solo practitioner. I'm in New York, and I do mostly commercial litigation, mediation, and arbitration is part of the work that I do. So that's why, this seemed to be an interesting seminar to join.
Great. Okay, well, glad to have you. And again, hope to see you at another meetup. This doesn't have to be the last one. And welcome visiting from New York. And Bernard.
Hi, all. Thanks, Jeff. Really helpful session. Appreciate the practical points on CISG and why our arbitration matters and across borders. Dr. Sweeta, really nice to meet you as well. I'm located here in Orange County, so not too far from LA. I help executives with online visibility. My story is this. 2024, we lost a large client, and I was able to turn the camera on myself, create video marketing, and generated over $1 million in free advertising for our business, and I help other people do the same. So looking forward to the August meetup. I'll take my self-driving car there since it's the auto theme. I'll see you all in person soon.
Great. Thank you, Bernard. Looking forward to it. And we also have Nino.
Hi everyone. This is my first global chamber. I am from Los Angeles, grew up in Santa Monica, but I am based in Phoenix. I am a graduate student at ASU and also working in international business development at EM Wasilek, which is based in Wisconsin. I'm looking forward to kind of come back to Los Angeles and do business and also expand. What we do is help companies, medium to small firms expand to different markets. So looking forward to see everyone in person in August.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you in person. Then we
Ian
have Gary.
Wasilek is a member in Wisconsin, and
Yes.
Ken Wasilek
Yeah.
is a graduate of Thunderbird, and there's actually a Wasilek conference room within Thunderbird right up from where our office is. So Ken is an amazing guy. He's also a fun guy to follow on LinkedIn because in addition to all the exporting work he does, kind of a male version of Elizabeth Glenn here in Los Angeles. He does a lot more international travel, it appears, and he also loves food. And so when he came to Phoenix, I did have breakfast with him at Matt's Big Breakfast, which is one of the better breakfast place. There used to be one right up the street from Thunderbird. They've closed that one, but it's in the airport. If you're ever passing through Phoenix, you'll see a Matt's Big Breakfast. Have the sausage scramble, or pretty much anything on the menu is pretty good. Sorry, Sarita, I wanted to give the shout out to a longtime member in Wisconsin.
Okay, no, great job. Okay, and then dear Issa can't speak due to the extreme heat. Be safe, my goodness. But thank you at least for your notes in the chat and for joining us today. And then just kind of go around. I know a few of you did get a chance to speak, but not to formally introduce yourself. So Dolan White, if you want to just do a quick introduction as well.
I'll go very quick. I'm a officially failed retiree who lasted about a week as a retiree, and I work with executives and on building businesses and scaling organizations. I also co-host a mastermind, have a podcast, wrote a book, and all because my wife asked me to quit following her around the house. So
I love it.
He's also a fan of street tacos,
Yes.
which the best one is we found is at the corner of National Boulevard and Sawtelle, very close to where I live. For $15, you could get the meal of your life and have leftovers for 2 nights. It's an amazing best street taco in Los Angeles. And you're also a fan of Tito's, which will eventually hit, I'm sure.
We'll get to Tito's.
Sounds good.
Lunch is in an hour because I'm not too far. I don't live too far from Doug. I know where to go for lunch.
Well, the street taco is an interesting one. They set up every day except Mondays from somewhere else. It's around 5:30, 5:35. They have set up. It takes a couple hours to set up, and then they run until about 10 to 12, depending on the day, and then they completely shut down, clean up out of the parking lot there where the Rite Aid used to be, and then they come back and do it again the next day. It's amazing. What a process. Oh my God. So we can learn a lot from that.
Okay. And then I have to do a plug for Dolan. Music. When I first, met Dolan, I saw the keyboard. I was like, this because I play piano, and so that's something we have in common in terms of the music and finding time to practice. So thank you so much, Dolan. And Gustavo, you did a little bit of an introduction, but if you just wanted to kind of remind us very quickly again.
Thank you, Sarita. Thank you, everybody, for this time. My name is Gustavo Lawrence. I'm with the ICDR. That's the International Center for Dispute Resolution. As Jeff talked right now about international arbitration, we're an administrative organization in a sense, as we assist during the process to kind of set it up and ensure that it happens, and you reach an award at the end stage. It's a pleasure to be here. And if anybody were to have any questions about or interest in international arbitration, I'm sure feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you, Gustavo. And then Marin, just quickly, I know you
Yeah,
had a chance to.
hi, Sarita. Hi, everybody. So, just quickly, as you know, I currently work in John Perry and Associates law firm here in Encino, California, but I'm based in Santa Monica myself. I'm a former Bulgarian diplomat, been in the States for 15 years doing international consultancy work. I do a lot of business consulting with the Middle East, with the UAE and Saudi Arabia, and also with the United Kingdom. So if anybody is interested in import-export work with the wider EMEA area, happy to reach out and discuss. I posted my LinkedIn profile. Please join me there. We can always exchange some thoughts if anybody's looking for international work or has partners looking to set up here in the US for any type of business investment venture. We're always happy to help. And I look forward to being an active member here. And next time I'll probably introduce our owner as well, John Perry himself. He'd like to join. Thank you,
Perfect.
Sarita.
Great. Thank you so much. And just quickly, a little bit about what I do in addition to being chair of the Global Chamber of Los Angeles. I put my information in the chat. I run the Global Research Institute of International Trade, where basically I provide the customized market research and strategic insights for companies that are expanding globally and providing them with the strategy so that they can compete over the long term in the international market. So that's a little bit about my background. And well, it looks like we're going to end on, 1 minute over because we go until 10:55. It's 10:56. Wow, but this was a great session. Again, thank you so much, Jeff. And Doug, I don't know if you want to have any last words, but don't forget August 26th. Our summer social details in the chat. And then our next monthly meetup is for Thursday, August 20th at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
One of our advisory board leaders for Los Angeles is Roberto Ancis, who's also with Elizabeth and Anita Rodal, who I saw earlier, talking and involved with the manufacturing sector. So he leads the sector, and both Elizabeth and Anita have been contributing to that. So was not available today for this meeting, but he's actually based in Sedona, and he's going to be in the Phoenix meetup tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a full lineup of about 20 speakers. I honestly don't know how we're going to get through it. And it's also Mandela Day on Saturday. And we historically always do a Mandela Day event at Global Chamber. It's usually with ASU and the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Unfortunately, the State Department ended that program this year, first time in, I don't know, it's over 12 years it's been going on, but apparently it has been renewed, or it will be renewed for next year. And so we'll be back hopefully to do with the Mandela Washington Fellows in different universities around the US. We've never done, I don't think, one here. I presume there must be a university here in Southern California that has the fellows. But ASU has been one of the receivers, and we've done one in Indianapolis and also in San Antonio. And so definitely a great program, great programs to defend by whatever country you're from. And, sometimes you're on the defensive, and this year and ongoing, we're definitely on that. On the international trade side, though, we heard a lot today, a lot of information from Jeff. Amazing resource, Jeff. You just are extraordinary. You and Sarita are a dynamic duo. Back to you, Sarita, for any final comment from you, and then let's close the room.
Okay. No, thanks again. And yes, and so this information, because there was quite a bit, and the information that Jeff provided was very, very useful. So this will appear on the Global Chamber YouTube channel. Go back, revisit to get all of that information regarding the CISG. And other than that, I just look forward to seeing everyone at another meetup, and definitely on August 26th at our summer social. And thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.